Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Blitzkrieg, our own strategic affairs show. 1999 summer was when the Indian Army fought at the heights of Kargil. There are remarkable stories of valor and courage, but that is not all about Kargil. Today we will discuss Kargil in a slightly different color, a color that you may not have seen or heard of before. And before I do that, let me introduce a panel of guests to you, both of whom are Kargil veterans. We have General K.K. Sinha, sir. Jai Hind, and a very warm welcome to our show, sir.
Jai Hind.
And we have Colonel Lalit Rai, Veer Chakra. Sir, Jai Hind, and a very warm welcome to our show, sir.
Jai Hind, Jai Hind.
Viewers, before I proceed, I would like to say something. Normally, I like to put facts on the table and not much of emotion. But today, I would like to say on record, thank you to Colonel Lalit Rai. When SS-57, my course, was training at OTA 1993-94, Colonel Lalit Rai was the adjutant. He trained us. He taught us how to eat, how to walk, how to talk. He made officers and gentlemen out of young boys. Sir, on behalf of SS-57, thank you very much, sir. We'll remain eternally grateful to you. Thank you, sir.
Privileged. Thank you.
I would like to start off by asking General K.K. Sinha, sir. Sir, what actually led to the Kargil conflict? How did the Kargil conflict start, sir? What led to the Kargil conflict? What were the geopolitical situations? What actually happened that led to the Kargil conflict?
Jai Hind, Gaurav. Before start, let me give the homage to 413, the brave hearts who laid down their life, 14 missing in actions, and 548 wounded soldiers, officers, and JCOs and Jawans. Okay, your question is very, very good, and I'm very glad that you are going into the strategic aspect of it. See, Gaurav, you have to understand, what happened after 71 and why 99, why it happened altogether. If you remember, in 98 is a time when India has gone for nuclear. We carried out two, nuclear blasts. That was in Pokhran. Followed by that, the Pakistani also went for, they went nuclear. After that, they perceived it. That is the time in Afghanistan, it was Taliban which was ruling. In 96 to 201, the Taliban was there. It was all doing of Pakistan. So they get emboldened. They thought the time has come that they can turn the table. They wanted to do something, because they thought that as for the conventional superiority, which the Indian Army had in 65 and in 71, that has gone. That is more or less compromised because they have got nuclear. They had a feeling that, India has gone for the first, no first use policy, which has not been formulated. They do not have command structure. Pakistan, they perceived it that they have got a better missile system. That time Bofors was on. They thought that in artillery, they are better off. That's why, in spite of that, the bus diplomacy, in spite of all those things were going on between Nawaz Sharif and Bajpai Saab, at military level, they thought that they can turn the table. First thing, they will undo the similar agreement of 71 by occupying the LOC in those areas which Indian Army will never take it back. Second thing was, they wanted to take the revenge of 84, what happened in Siachen Glacier, and also in Turtuk sector, and no one brings it out. If you read Badr of the Pakistan, it is a masterpiece game plan of Pakistan. I say, masterpiece. They knew exactly for 26 years in this area from Moscow right up to the, Chor Batla and where it is turning toward the Siachen. It is 26 years in winters, we vacate this area. And that's why they had this plan of Badr, which was conceived long back, and it had put in action by Musharraf. But, where he messed it up is the execution part of it.
No, absolutely, sir. Absolutely, sir. I agree with you that it was a bold plan. But then, sir, all Pakistani plans are bold. It is just the execution where they mess it up. So whether it's 65, whether it's 47, 48, even 1971, sir, Kargil, I mean, there is a history of bold planning and poor execution. My next question is to Colonel Lalit Rai. Sir, what do you think were the important battle landmarks of Kargil? There was a time when we felt that our soldiers were climbing the peaks and Pakistanis would just not even fire, sir, just throw down rocks, and our men would be martyred. But there was a time when a point of inflection was reached in the war. That point of inflection was when we actually started winning. And one day I remember I suddenly got a phone call and he said, "We've got Tiger Hill," and this came as such a pleasant surprise for all of us, sir. What do you think were the important landmarks, Colonel Lalit Rai, sir?
See, first I would say that 0.5140 Toluling, somewhere around, I think, 17th of June or something. That was one of the major victories over there. And that sort of proved a point, and that gave a lot of boost to the morale. Then coming further up towards Batalik sector, it was the area of Chor Batla and then the Khaluvar top. That was somewhere on 4th of July. I think these are the few points which actually turned the tide of the war in each of these sectors of Kargil.
I was in Leh, sir, and I had the privilege of interviewing Colonel Sonam Wangchuk, sir, Mahavir Chakra. And I asked him, sir, I heard his story and I asked him, sir, how did you do it? And typical of Colonel Wangchuk, he's so humble. He says, "No, Gaurav, nothing special. Any soldier or officer of the Indian Army would have done it." And he just brushed aside a tale of valor and sacrifice which was so incredible that, just hearing about it, you can't believe that some human being could have done it. He did it and he was so humble. And that is how, I will always remember Colonel Sonam Wangchuk, Mahavir Chakra of the Ladakh Scouts. Coming to Colonel Lalit Rai. Sir, you've always told that story, sir, about, giving water to that soldier, sir. And you were unable to give water. What was it like on that mountain peak, sir? I cannot imagine, for my life, I cannot imagine, sir,
So, Gaurav,
that somebody would have fought in
Gaurav,
such conditions.
before
I would like
that-
you to tell our viewers, sir, what was it like on that mountain peak on that night?
Gaurav, before that, for a commanding officer, you asking a question that what is that one valor and one deed? It's a very difficult thing. It's like asking a mother, who's your favorite child? Out of 5 or 6 children you have, who's your favorite child? So there are some sung ones and there are some unsung ones. So before I even come to that little bit of a story, let me tell you that every Jawan, every JSO, every officer contributed in his own way and own might, and they were absolutely courageous. We had young officers who were attached to us from Ordnance, from ASC, Captain Samiran Roy, Joshi. These were the people who were attached from our Ordnance and the ASC, who did a fantastic job. Then there were youngsters like Rawat, Akshay, Satish, and of course the company commanders, everybody was there. So the well-known ones, of course, Captain Manoj Pandey, who got the PVC. Unfortunately and sadly, he got it posthumously.
Yes, sir.
But few people are. One is Lieutenant Gyanendra. He was shot through his neck, a bullet. I saw that happening in front of me. This boy, in that stupor of consciousness and subconsciousness, he just wriggled, got himself and disengaged from the enemy, and he ran into the enemy area. And can you believe it? For 3 or 4 nights, he stayed in the enemy territory, hiding under the rocks, coming out at night, chopping people with kukris, foraging whatever food he could get. And on the 4th day, he tumbled back into our base. So such was the valor. Of course, he got a Veer Chakra for it. Now, coming to that story, Gaurav, the going was extremely tough. We were absolutely surrounded. We were on top, beleaguered, hungry, no sleep, no food, no water. In a scenario like that, one of the boys crawled up, seeing me in a very, very difficult position. And a sniper got him there. And he was there in front of me, bleeding, his blood oozing out from his chest. And that time, for about 10 minutes, I kept talking to this boy. And at the end of 10 minutes, I could see that light in his eyes slowly fading, And for a commanding officer, there's such a sight, a young boy, ambitious, a very good sports person, and with his own family and his own ambitions going in front of you. And then in the last few seconds, he asked me for water. And that was something where I felt so helpless, because the whole area was shelled and that chemical cordite spread all over the snow. I couldn't even give him the snow to lick over there. And then I made snowballs and asked him to open his mouth, and I kept trying to throw that snowball into his mouth so that he could have some water, so that he should not feel that his commanding officer, for whom the commanding officer is like God for him, and could not help him in his last hour. I knew that cordite laced snow would have been deadly, and he would have, actually got dysentery, and maybe he would have gone that way. But for me, it was the last act which I did. And by the time I threw the fifth ball, which I still obviously missed because my complete body was shaking, ravished with hunger, weakness, anger, frustration. And this boy, he just left us. That was tragic. And one last, the unsung one I must tell you is, while going up, people were getting wounded. They were getting shattered by the machine gun fire, and we were charging up. Lots of machine gun firing at us with high intensity there. And then I remember every time my boy would fall down, I would put him on my lap, take the snow and put it over there so that I stop the flow of blood. And this young boy is telling me, Hisar, please go ahead. You have to reach the objective before daylight. Otherwise, we all will be butchered. We understand that. I'm bleeding a lot. My whole chest feels hollow, but we understand you have to get the objective, but please come back as soon as possible and take us down. And of course, it took me a few days. Rather than I thought I'll just finish it by morning and have them evacuated. It took me a few days to come down. And when we came down, some of these same boys, their rifles aimed towards the enemy bunker where I told them to keep firing and give us supporting fire. Their fingers squeezing the trigger, the magazines empty, no bullets, the whole body frozen solid over there. These are the unsung heroes. They are the Ratnas of the nation, Gaurav. And we should feel justifiably proud of the Indian Army soldier whose indomitable spirit is the only element that got us the victory all over Kargil. Thank you.
Absolutely, sir. Absolutely, sir. Goosebumps, sir. And I've heard these stories before, sir, and it brings tears to the eyes. You can hear them 100 times, sir, and there's the same emotional reaction. General K.K. Sinha, sir, my question to you is that even in Kargil and even afterwards, sir, 1971, I'll start off by something that I always say, sir. I've said this always. I went to Army headquarters and I said this to them also. And, that the Indian Army is not just a powerful army, it's also a moral army, sir. We are not strong because we have weapons. We are strong because we are right. And we saw the Indian Army's morality, General Sinha, in Kargil, where we buried the enemy dead. You yourself have brought it out very beautifully in so many of the television shows that we read the Namaz-e-Janaza, we gave them a guard of honor, and we handed over dead bodies. We did not mutilate the dead, sir. Because, they say in the army, sir, ki dushmani mein bhi sharafat honi chahiye. I remember my first CO, sir, Colonel Pathak used to say, there should be honor even in enmity. Obviously, our enemy does not believe that, but we did, sir. Can you tell us one story about how we acquitted ourselves honorably as soldiers in Kargil, sir?
Gaurav, I believe it. I'm from the Sikh regiment, and I feel that, every soldier of Indian officer, JCO Jawan, they are Sant Sipahi. They're absolutely purest from the heart. Even these people, what we have seen, Guru Granth Sahib, that you give water to the enemy, dying enemy. It is, I've seen with my own eyes that everyone, irrespective of anyone, including those pony, the drivers of AC who was taking, they have done the tremendous job as far as the humanity is concerned. 700 dead bodies of Pakistan, that is counted all along in the Kargil war. 41 officers, including a brigadier of there, which they refused to take it. 1 brigadier, 1 colonel, 12 majors, 12 captains, and 1 lieutenant. And maximum of them was in my area. Maximum. Because I was from the area of Karubar, which he's saying, the axis, Colonel Rai has brought it out. And that further toward the east in a huge area, my troops were there. That time, on 16th of July, there was a ceasefire was announced that there will be no firing. And these soldiers, we were got, this thing orders that these people will go back. They were not taking the dead bodies. They are refusing. Their officer dead body was 9. I was there and they were not ready. I was telling them, please take it. They are not taken. Of course, you have heard that we have given the burial the way it is required. 700 dead bodies, not in all of with me, in the complete sector, out of more than 3,000 in the intrusion which has taken place. I will give you one. Because we have seen some of those who has carried out operations against us and killed many of my boys. I was identifying those officers, and they were passing through my location from a hand distance. I can slap them, I can kick them, but the orders were there that you will allow them to go back, and we are allowed. But there was one incident, one of my Nayak opened fire because he has seen his colleague dying, and he was identifying who are the people who are doing it. And that from that post where they were withdrawing inside, he opened fire. I was immediately, given a call that, you have to take actions against it, and because it is violation. Because again, battle ended only on 26th of July. It was again opened up, and he was told, okay, you carry out operations. So this type things happens in the war, where there is something, I have taken a decision where you are told to stop, cease fire, no killing, and there were actions to be taken against this boy. I told my brigade commander to my GOC, he said it will be on my dead body, because this boy has seen his complete section getting wiped out, and he's opened the fire. So it is nothing to do. I'm not saying, the valor. I took it, okay, before you want to do it, you do it for me. First do it, remove me, and then you can take actions. This boy, at the same time, this boy, when he was allowing others to pass, but he didn't allow that particular post, which has actually carried out, killing of his sections people. He allowed everyone to go back because that was the order, and that is what the Indian soldiers are. When they take, when they are told to do something, then when they can,
Sure.
they are so furious, they can chop heads. They will take out everything. They do dhawa, they will do. But at the same time, when the time comes with the humanity, they will carry out the burial. They will pay the respect. They will give them, whatever the Superde Khak you do it, they know a little bit that has been done. My Granthi has done it. My Granthi has done it
Sure.
to the body of these people who have been left. More than about 200 odd, we have given the burial.
Absolutely, sir.
Gaurav,
Like we say, sir, zindagi
just
khatam, dushmani khatam, sir.
two small
There is
points,
no,
Gaurav.
there is no. Colonel Lalit Rai wants to say something, sir. Please.
Yeah, just two small points. Before the war, I had spoken to my boys, and I just simply told them, look, your enemy is your enemy till such time he is alive and fighting. The moment he is dead and the war is over, remember he too is a soldier, and give him a soldier's honor. So this is what we followed. While going up that mountain, which I did not mention here, my chaps with the kukris, 5 feet something, and the Pathan 6 feet something, they were jumping up and lobbing their heads off clean from the torso. But when it came later, after the war, we got them together and gave them proper burial. So this is the soldiers' honor that we kept. And I think the whole Indian army did that, and for which the world actually lauded us and said, indeed, a professional army, the Indian army, and they saluted us. And the same was not true for Pakistan.
General Sinha, sir, you mentioned about 5 feet something Gurkha soldiers cutting off the heads of 6 feet something Pathan soldiers of Pakistan. Very recently in the Pakistan media, sir, there was this news that 3,000 Gurkhas of the Indian army have landed in Afghanistan. All these rumors were floating around in the Pakistani media, and I called up a Pakistani friend, and I said that this is, you're saying this, and this is probably untrue because no troops have gone there to the best of my knowledge. He says, no, there is a strong rumor in GHQ, Rawalpindi, that the Gurkhas are coming to Afghanistan. I said, then God bless you, my friend. Then God bless you. If the Gurkhas are there, then God bless you. My question is to General Sinha. Sir, sir, after the Kargil war, Pakistan almost descended into chaos, sir. There was a coup in Pakistan. Nawaz Sharif and Parvez Musharraf, it was open war amongst these two people. And then Nawaz Sharif was thrown out, sir. and there was martial law. Can you comment a little bit on this, sir? How Kargil actually impacted the situation inside Pakistan?
I will try to bring out a dubious nature of both the polity and also the army of an ISI, of Pakistan. First thing, Nawaz Sharif has been telling lie that he has been not told when he was, pushing the bus diplomacy and Lahore declaration. He was briefed prior to, that in the month of January, February, and March. 3 times he was knowing. Only underlining, he has said that it should be in the garb of mujahideens. It should be only the terrorists. Pakistani soldiers can go, but before that, 3 months preparation has to be done. They have to be totally given a facelift of that. It has been done by. So Nawaz Sharif, that is what the Nawaz Sharif is. Second thing is, he was knowing, he was hugging Bajpai Sahab, he was knowing what is happening in Kargil. It is all wrong, which he has been saying that he didn't knew. He knew everything. He has given. Now you asked what happened thereafter. There is a famous this thing. That is the coup of 111 Brigade when the Musharraf was in the air has taken place and he has taken over. That's everyone in the world knows about it. What happened to Musharraf? Musharraf is the guy. He has lost his brother in 1971 war. So he had a very, very, bitter heart as far as the Indian Army was concerned. And he was trying to settle a personal score. And second thing, he wanted to go in the history book of, of the Pakistan, which has turned the table into the area of Siachen and also on the, in this area of completely from Kargil. Moscow was, people do not talk about it. Moscow was, his target. With more than a battalion plus an NLI, because he wanted to go to Srinagar. He wanted to, have his turning of flanks of Neelam Valley. That is what the strategic importance is. And I give this, salute Musharraf for that. When the Musharraf, that is the time he has said, the Taliban is the guy, the Taliban is the thing, which has got a root in Pakistan. It will become, a weapon against them, and which is. At that time, he was saying, it is a strategic asset. So Musharraf was a great leader. You have to give him, and I salute for him, his leadership of military understanding. And what happened thereafter? Musharraf has gone wrong where? When he has carried out this coup, and he thought, that is the time, remember it is 99, still the Americans were in the pocket of Pakistan. Because that time they were thinking that, the Pakistan has done something of disintegration of USSR. They have also thrown the regimes and it is the Pak. But Al-Qaeda and that time was very much there. Americans only turned against them when after 9/11. Musharraf played a game, such a beautiful game for his country, as a strategic planner, a guy. He joined Americans thereafter because of Bush. That time he said, anyone who is in the game of this battle against the terrorism is with me or he is not with him. And Pakistan and he took so much of things from American that time. He has taken more than what the before creation of Taliban. He has got the money, he got the weapon, he got everything. That's why you have to give this devil a due. He was a great failure as a politician, and that is good. And he came to Agra. He came to Agra who wanted to settle the score of LOC.
Sir, absolutely,
knowing that it is not possible.
Sir, the last question will go to Colonel Rai, sir. So we often do not discuss the aftermath of battle, sir. There is a certain cost of war that people don't discuss, sir. A cost of war that the soldiers pay and, the families pay. And everybody pays because when there is war, sir, I mean both sides, whether it's Pakistan or India or China, India, both sides pay the cost of war. And you have also spoken about, the post-traumatic stress, sir. I'd like your comments. What do you think the cost of war for Kargil was? So what are the actual human cost of war?
Very, very good question. And I think this is one dimension which has been generally left out of our discussion, because in our euphoria of victory, in our happiness that things went off okay for us, we often forget what people had to go through. Just to put the correct perspective, remember every time that I ordered the section or a platoon to attack a machine gun post as we moved ahead, it was not the section commander or the platoon commander's face that came in front of me. It was the face of his wife, his kids, crying and asking me, "You're sending my father, you're sending my husband to sure death. Machine gun firing at 1,000 rounds per minute, and all the other rocket launches, everything firing, and you trying to do the fire and move and go close to lob a grenade inside. Easier said than done. It takes more than just heart, you know. That is the time that human angle comes in. For the whole world, one number is less when a soldier goes. But for that lady and her kids, their whole world is over when their breadwinner, the husband, the father goes. And I realized that after the war. So when a lot of the correspondents came to me, they said, you should be very cheerful and happy. And I had not spoken for almost a month or so. I was absolutely, saddened by the loss of my boys. They said, you should be happy that you all have done wonders and you have, made history for yourselves. I said, yes, I agree to that. But at what cost? What cost? Look at the young lives lost. Look at so many of the widows in front of me over here. And you won't believe it. What made me actually open my mind and my, for me to spread this word around about the valor of my boys and tell people what happened over there was a small incident which I must share with you. I was sitting down after the war. We were at a place called Nodla where we were recouping, trying to take stock of the damages and all those losses, etc., etc. One day, my runner came with almost 2 suitcases full of letters. He said, Ram sir. I said, what is it? He said, these are letters for you. I said, can't be possible. One wife, one letter, once a week because of the APO. And I should have been happy. But there were 2 suitcases full of letters. I said, how can this be possible? And he opened the suitcases. They were all letters addressed to the commanding officer, but not by name. Commanding officer, 1st Lieutenant Gurkha Rifles. When I opened those envelopes, inside the envelopes, Gaurav, were small notebooks, from where they have torn the pages. You could make out that some small child has done that. And there were small drawings where a small kid is putting a rakhi on someone over there, which is like a soldier with a gun. He says, प्यारे भैया, फौजी भैया, ये राखी आपके लिए है. हम आपसे बहुत प्यार करते हैं. आप जल्दी घर आ जाइए. हम आपका इंतजार कर रहे हैं. You won't believe it. In that state of mind that I was in, where I didn't want to speak to anyone because of the loss and the gravity of the whole situation, where you feel that loss and that heaviness over there. This small gesture changed the complete complexion of the way I thought. And then suddenly it dawned on me, look, there are people who care for us. It's not that we are fighting in a desolate area over here and people are fighting behind there as to which movie they should see and where they should go and who said what to whom. And here we are fighting for a dear life surrounded by the enemy, hungry, shaken, cold, no shelter on top. So that changed my complete perspective. Now coming to the other aspect of PTSD, I think this is one aspect that we have to really, which requires a lot of improvement. Because come what may, after going through absolutely life-threatening and situation and an attack like that, there is a certain amount of imbalance in your brains because of that extreme type of a situation that you have been in. And we need to take cognizance of this aspect and organize it well. For example, you take the Vietnam War, you take the Korean War. Vietnam War, what happened? People came back, they were totally disoriented. They were disillusioned. They could not go back to society. There were umpteen number of suicides in the American public and the ex-army soldiers over there. And the whole country faced that situation. Thankfully, our Indian Army has got such a lovely structure where the senior soldiers keep playing the role of a mentor. And the whole battalion is like a family where the senior people, they put the younger boys and the younger soldiers at ease. The commanding officer plays the role of a father. The second in command plays the role of a mother. And we sort of look after and care for each other. But that in itself may not be enough. It's high time we think about the role of the psychologists and the psychiatrists. We should come and give them some semblance of a treatment where you can bring them back again into the mainstream and main focus. So this is one thing which I felt that we could improve upon. We could do this and we could introduce this in a big way. In the other armies, wherever they're facing these type of situations, there are lots of these treatments which are going on, and they are part of the whole organization as such.
Thank you very much, sir. And I would like to thank General Sinha and Colonel Lalit Rai for joining me on this Kargil Vijay Divas special episode. And before I sort of call it a day, I would like to tell you a small story, viewers. This is about one Brigadier MPS Bajwa of the Indian Army. He finds that a Pakistani officer has fought very bravely against the Indian Army and died fighting. The name of that officer was Captain Colonel Sher Khan. And Captain Colonel Sher Khan was from the Pakistan Army, and he was given Pakistan's highest gallantry award on the recommendations of Brigadier MPS Bajwa of the Indian Army. Like I said, dushmani mein sharafat. The power of the Indian Army is not in its weaponry. The power of the Indian Army is in its morality. Thank you for watching this very special episode. I'll come back to you next week with another episode. Till then, from my team and I here at the Republic TV studios, Jai Hind.